Hello, I would like to explain how to write a species counterpoint when the Cantus firmus is given in the upper voice. In some of the other videos I made, the Cantus firmus was given in the lower voice. Here it is given in the upper voice. And in fact, even if we are working on, let's say, third or fourth species, it might be good to first write a first species and then we add nodes to it to make it a third or fourth species. So one of the important things is whatever is given, you have to pay attention to the clef. So this is a clef with the octave sign below it, which means it sounds an octave lower. That means if I were to start on a unison, then I would have to notate this node here, and if I want to end on a unison, those are my unisons. So this is the same note in the upper voice as in the lower voice. Now, since it's given in the upper voice, the Cantus firmus is given in the upper voice, the general motion of it is up and down. So I want to go in my counterpoint. I want to go down and up, generally speaking. Now, and so in my second to last measure, I want to set C sharp. In Dorian, Aeolian, and Mixolydian, we raise the seventh scale degree to essentially create what we later call the leading tone. So it provides for a better resolution. Now, with the text tool, I can probably include my analysis here. So my analysis is simply generic intervals. So we start on a unison. Now I'm just going to the back for now. Trying to hit the spacebar many times. And end on a unison. All right, finally got there. Then this is the interval of a third. So again, this sounds an octave lower, so C sharp up to E is a third. We also want to watch out that we don't cross voices. That means the lower voice should not go above the upper voice and the other way around. Anyway, so now we have a motion going up here. If I were to go stepwise down to C, then I won't create the interval of a fourth, but this is, I'm writing out a first species counterpoint first. A fourth is considered a dissonance in species counterpoint in Renaissance music, so that is not allowed. I could possibly leap down. Well, if I would leap to B, then we have a fifth, but it's a diminished fifth, and that would be a dissonance also. I could leap further, but we have to be careful with leaps also. The motion has to be primarily conjunct. That means most of the motion from one note to the next in the same voice should be by step. So primarily stepwise motion, but we can leap occasionally, or we can possibly also repeat a note. So we call this right. Let me insert here the analysis. So we call this oblique motion. So this is a third now. All right. So I could go a little bit in parallel thirds, but maybe since we're at the beginning of the counterpoint, we also want to go in a little bit of contrary motion. So now what if I would leap down to the A? Then I would create a fifth between A and E, and perfect intervals can only be approached by contrary motion or by oblique motion, so this would not be allowed. If I would leap down to a sixth, to G, that would create the interval of a sixth, and then I could actually go up. No, I couldn't go up. If I go up to A, it would create a fourth. If I would leap up, it creates a third, but that's already a lot of leaping. So I'm not so sure if I'm happy with that. So maybe I shouldn't have started out with an oblique motion here. But if I would leap further down, yeah, let me actually change this. So this is now a sixth. And so we start out in contrary motion and then go in parallel motion and then leap up. So we don't have two leaps in a row. I like that better. So if I now enter my analysis or make the correction to my analysis, so this is the interval of a sixth. This is the interval of a sixth. This is the interval of a third. All right. Next. So the Cantus firmus here leaps up. So if I would go down, I can't go to A, that would be in the interval of a seventh. I could go to G, to an octave, and it would be approached in contrary motion, which would be fine. Now, we should not have many perfect intervals in the middle of the counterpoint. It starts on a perfect interval, ends on a perfect interval, and have one or two in the middle. So we can have here one. But what I don't like, again, is now it leaps again. It has two leaps in a row. So perhaps I don't actually like that. Maybe oblique motion, since I changed the beginning and we didn't have oblique motion yet. So this would create the interval of a sixth. Then in contrary motion, now we can leap again. In contrary motion, that would create a third. Now if we go in contrary motion stepwise, that would create a sixth. And now we can go in parallel sixth. And I can now leap again up to a third, and then we already have the rest. So let me write in the analysis here. So we have sixth, third, sixth, sixth. Well, it doesn't have to be lining up perfectly, but then third, third, and unison. So how does it sound? Let's hear it. I'll hit save first, just in case. So I will save this and rename it first species, maybe like that, because I now want to make a third species out of it. And so for that, I take what I have, but I will fill in some nodes. So third species is 4 against 1, so I will change the counterpoint into quarter nodes. So for each measure, I may delete the whole node and I fill in quarter nodes. Now, I may actually still leave the first measure as a whole node, or at least the last measure. So maybe not the first measure. So now I look what I already got. So if I want on the downbeat of measure 2 to keep the A, but I will change it later to a quarter node, and then I need 3 more nodes here in the first measure. So we could go to C. That would create a dissonance, so I would have to resolve it. B, so I'll just do that, and even if it creates an error, errors are not bad. We can always fix them. So now this is the interval of a second, must be resolved by step. Third, fifth, up to the sixth. That is possible. So if I add my analysis, now it's a little tighter here. 1, 2, 3. G to D is a sixth. And now I have a sixth here. So now I will go to the second measure. I want to definitely keep an A here. So I have the interval of a sixth. By the way, I'm writing this in finale, and you could actually force the directions of the stems in a certain direction, or you can leave them just as they normally are, going down from B and higher notes, and the stems going up below anything below B. So I'll leave it for now. So now, let's say if I want to leave the structural nodes of my original counterpoint, let's see if I can come up with something. Now the Cantus firmus goes down, so it would actually be nice to approach it in the counterpoint from below. Then we have contrary motion. As much contrary motion as possible is great. If we go down here, we now have a seventh, and then we have an octave, and now we have if I would go one more down, then we would have a ninth, which we cannot if we want to keep the G, because the dissonance would have to be resolved by step. It can be in the same direction or in the opposite direction. So sixth, seventh, octave. Maybe I go back to the sixth, and then I have parallel sixth. So I write my analysis in here. And by the way, it's much better, much easier to handwrite this, except then it would be much more difficult to make this video, and that's why I'm doing this in finale, which I'm not that used to, but for the purpose of this video. But for you, I recommend handwriting everything and just use the eraser a lot to change mistakes, to get rid of mistakes. Octave, sixth, sixth. Okay, on to the next measure. And quarter notes. So the note that I had here in the original first species counterpoint was a G, which created the interval of a sixth to the Cantus firmus. And if I go down here, then I have a seventh, and I come back up, resolving by step in a neighbor motion in this case. Now, some textbooks are very strict, and they only allow the passing motion, but a lot of other textbooks allow this neighbor motion, as long as the dissonance is approached by step and resolved by step, it is allowed. So we are back to the sixth. This is a fifth, and then we go to a third. So that is a very nice solution. So let me write in the analysis: sixth, seventh, sixth, fifth, and going to a third here. So we have B now in the counterpoint, and if we want to keep it, I will. So that's our third to the Cantus firmus. Now the Cantus firmus now leaps up. So if we go initially up and then down, then we have contrary motion between the two parts. So let's see how that would work. So that would be the interval of a second, the interval of a unison. You have to be very careful with unisons. You don't want the unisons on a downbeat, on the first beat in third species, just like you don't want the unison in first species, because it's the absolute perfect interval, and it should only be reserved for the very beginning or the very end if it falls on the downbeat of a measure. But if it's in the middle, it's possible to have it. So unison, now this is the interval of a second to the Cantus firmus. Again, we have to constantly remind us that our counterpoint is sounding an octave lower. So so this is middle C here. So this middle C is a second below the D in the Cantus firmus. And then it goes down here. So let me write in the analysis. So I think this got moved a little bit. Anyways, third, second, unison, second. So both of these seconds are approached and resolved in stepwise motion. And now we have the interval of a sixth between this B and the G. Let me get rid of some of these spaces here. Okay, moving on. Here we have another B, and I will keep it as a quarter note. So that creates a sixth, seventh, sixth, fifth. Again, whenever we have a perfect interval, it needs to be approached either by contrary motion or by oblique motion. So if it falls on beats 2, 3, or 4 in third species, then it's automatically oblique motion because the Cantus firmus is being held. And then I have a third here. So let me actually add another measure before I do the analysis. So D, so we have a interval of a third, third, maybe second, third, and now I'm already kind of stuck here because I want to continue going, and maybe that was not the best way to do. So let me rethink this. So we have a third. Maybe we can third, second, first, third, and now a sixth. I think I like that. And so let's see what got moved here. My numbers. So 6, 7. Oops. Oh, come on. So I guess that's one of the reasons I don't recommend doing this in finale. 1, 2, 3, 6, 6, 7, 8, 6. Okay, I'm trying to line this up, and it will move again later when I add more measures. Then 3, 2, 1, 2, and this is 6. Seventh, sixth, fifth, and this is third, second, unison. Now we have had that unison twice, 2 measures earlier we had it. We may not want that to do that again ever in this counterpoint. And going back to third, and then on the next downbeat we have now a 6 and getting rid of some of the spaces. All right, hitting save just in case if this crashes we don't lose everything. So now let's erase this C and put a quarter note there. So we keep basically we keep the first species structure on all the first beats of each measure. 6th, 7th, octave, maybe 6th, okay, and then it goes here to a 6th as well, and let's do that measure also right away. So 6th, 7th, 6th, 5th, And then we go to a third here. Let's actually finish it up. Third, fourth, that's a dissonance, must be stepwise. Fifth, but that's a diminished fifth, so you have two dissonances in a row. And I may want to avoid that, so I will actually leap here to a sixth. And now the question is on how we continue. If we wanted to leave this as a whole note, it is possible, but it's more commonly also exchanged with quarter notes. And of course, in this case, the C sharp cannot remain the first quarter of that measure. It has to be the last quarter of the measure. So let me fill in the last quarter note in this third to last measure a little later. So for now, I will delete this, and this will become a C sharp, but it will be on the last quarter. So I will just fill in some notes, and I will just change the pitch of it later. Okay, so the very ending we have. So now here in between we need to make some changes. So here we had a third going to a fourth. We cannot leap away from the dissonance, right? So we need to make this stepwise, and I didn't want two dissonances in a row, so maybe we will make it a lot lower and lower this. We may leap down on this one, and then we can come back up, and then we have a contrary motion to the Cantus firmus. So if we leap down to A here, then we have the interval of a sixth right here. And then maybe seventh and back to the sixth. So the seventh is approached and resolved in contrary motion, in stepwise motion, and in the last case also it will turn out to be contrary motion to the Cantus firmus, I hope. We'll see. So we have a sixth here. Now we could actually have oblique motion and create a fifth on the downbeat here. But then it's difficult to change this, so maybe this first we want to lower. So we could leave this in parallel sixth, 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 fifth, fourth dissonance, approached and left by step, and then we resolve it. So I think this will work out. I hope we won't find another mistake when writing in the analysis. So I just need to line this up again here. 6, 7, 6, 5, 3, 2, 1, 2, 6, 7, 6, 5, 3, 2, 1, 3. Okay, so here we have the interval of a sixth, then seventh, then octave, then sixth, then 6th, 7th, 6th, 5th, 3rd, 6th. Let me get rid of the spaces. Whoops. 6th. And now it's messed up again. Oh no, it actually works. So this is a 3rd, going then to a 6th, going to a 7th, going back to a 6th, and the 3rd actually belonged here to the C sharp. But let me erase it for now. So we have a 6th here, a 5th, a 4th, which is a dissonance, a 3rd, and our final one. Analysis now with our third species counterpoint. So and after playing, some of the analysis got misplaced again. I don't know why. Where did it go? How strange is that? Anyways, I will fix it later. I just realized I only really use stepwise dissonances. Of course, you can, in third species, you can have an incomplete neighbor, or you can have a cambiata figure in which you can actually leap away from a dissonance if it's a cambiata figure. I didn't use it. I still like it. The counterpoint has a unique character and is very independent from the Cantus firmus, and that really is the goal. Anyways, so I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you later. Bye.